Hi, all my pre-medical students out there. Today's topic is about how to write your personal statement. I've had a lot of requests for this video. I think it's just because it's the season, it's application time, so I think that that's what it is. I do have recommendations for a personal statement. I personally believe your GPA and your personal statement are two of the most powerful aspects of your application. So, focus on that GPA. I'm going to say it again. Your GPA needs to be strong. Aside from that, your personal statement is an opportunity for you to have a conversation with people who will potentially select you for an interview. So this is your shot for them to see who you are. Are you funny? Are you clever? Are you witty? Are you dedicated? Why do you want to be a PA? That's the overarching goal of this letter, is to get across the point of why you chose to be a PA. Here are my 10 tips as to what you should do in your personal statement. Tip number 1, whatever you do, your letter should have a theme. You should have a flowing theme throughout the entire letter that you introduce at the beginning, you explain in the middle, and you close up at the end. So your letter should be some kind of story or theme, I don't know a better word for it, describing why you want to be a PA, but in a creative way. So don't just say, I want to be a PA because da 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 da. That's boring and people get sick of reading that. So it needs to be creative. One of the best ones I heard was someone who compared PA school to a swing, and they were talking about being on a swing when they were little. I don't know, this is a popular letter on the internet, so maybe you guys have come across it, but that they were on a swing and they wanted to get that feeling of freedom and peace, and they found that in the medical community. So whatever it is, pick some kind of theme that can start your letter off, lead it through in the middle to explain, and then wrap it up at the end. Something memorable and catching, because these people are reading hundreds, if not thousands, of letters, and you need some kind of exciting theme for your personal letter. Second one, don't overdo it. So whatever you do, you want to be self-congratulatory in your letter. You want to let them know how great you are. Obviously, it's your one shot to do that, but you don't want to be over the top about it or boastful. No one likes that. And on the other hand, you don't want to be self-deprecating. If you have weaknesses in your application, I think this is a great place to bring those up, to hit them head on, but don't go over the top with it. Don't be too self-deprecating. Okay, my third tip is to stick to the rules of the suggested letter. So font size, the number of characters, the color, don't go outside of any of that. I've come across some letters where people are trying to get all creative, and it doesn't work. So stick to the rules. Let them know you can follow the rules, you can read, and you can follow the rules. That's important here. 4, you want to somehow be unique and different. I said this a little bit in number 1, but I want to say it as its own statement, because uniqueness is a power tool here. You want to be someone that they remember. When I went in for my interview, the lady who interviewed me said, I remember your letter. So something that makes them remember who you are, okay? So something unique. Number 5 is to be specific. I've read a lot of letters where people just say the blatant, boring, I want to be a PA because when I went to the ER, I was treated by a PA and they spent so much time with me, and boring, everyone says it. Please don't say that. It's so boring and it's overdone, and everybody talks about some personal medical experience they had and how it affected them. I mean, if you choose to do that, you can. I'm gonna let you know it's overdone. A lot of people do it. So trying to be creative and unique would be a challenge for you, and important if you want to catch their attention. Okay, number 6 is to avoid cliches. So one of the common cliches that I have seen in a lot of letters is someone who will say, as I started spending time as a medical assistant in the office, or during my phlebotomy hours, da 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 da. Don't be so cliche and just say and state what you've done. Introduce what you've done in a creative way. So perhaps one specific patient made a really big impression on you while you were working as a CNA on the floor. So just kind of toss it in there so they recognize, okay, yes, this patient clearly has experience, but you don't have to be cliche about it, right? The seventh one is to have a strong conclusion. So when you're reading through a letter, the beginning is important, the middle is there and it's important, but the ending is really the kicker and the clincher. So the beginning, I would say, is the most important to get something really interesting right off the bat so they don't get bored. But the ending, you have to have a strong conclusion, something that ties everything together, that's powerful, some kind of statement that maybe catches the reader off guard a little bit and ties everything in. So a strong conclusion is really, really important. Number 8, and this is possibly the most important one on this list, somewhere in your letter, you need to explain why you want to be a PA or a nurse practitioner or a medical student or a doctor, or whatever you're going to apply for. You need to answer whatever question they initially gave you. So for PAs, I believe it says, why do you want to be a PA? I think that's the overarching question of the personal statement. Make sure you answer it somehow. You don't have to directly say it, and it's best if you don't come right out and say, I want to be a PA because, but make sure that you're answering that question somehow in your letter so that by the end the reader knows, oh, I understand why this person has desired so heavily to go into being a PA or whatever the topic. Number 9, again, I mentioned this a little bit, but if you have any weaknesses in your application, this is the time to mention them and get them out on the table. You don't want to be self-deprecating and, beat a dead horse. But if there is something in your application that you're worried about, like you failed organic chemistry and you want to mention it and you want to mention that you failed it, this is why you retook it and this is what you learned and this is why that won't happen again in PA school, great time to do it. On the other hand, if you have some fantastic point in your application, whatever your really strongest point of your application is, maybe you have 10,000 hours of clinical experience, mention that. You don't have to make it your whole letter, but mention it so that it's in there and that you get the point across that this is what's making you a stronger candidate than somebody else. And the 10th one is to have and make sure that you have someone else review your letter. I would say 3 people because everyone's going to catch something different with their reading eye. You have written it and reread it so many times, you won't catch the mistakes. You need to have at least 3 people who have read it, taken the time to read it, who are responsible and educated people to catch mistakes, people that you trust that will do a good job catching errors because you won't always see the mistakes that you've made. Make sure you have someone review this. Like I said, I had 3 people. I chose people that I trusted, English professors, a lawyer, people like that. So any questions or concerns about this? Those are my 10 biggest tips for you. I know it can be daunting and a little bit overwhelming, but again, be different in your letter, be creative, be fun. Don't be afraid to show personality here because reading letter after letter, it gets boring and dry, and the reader and the application board of people that are selecting you for an interview, they want to see some personality. Don't be afraid to show that. Be yourself. It's really important here. Okay, that's it. Any questions or concerns, you know where to find me. My information will be below for my email, my Instagram account, my website, and you can contact me through any of those. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.